Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Talks NFL podcast. My name is Jonah Carden, and this is going to be a whirlwind of an episode. I have saved a lot of my thoughts and discussions for kind of where I thought the end of this was going to be in terms of what this offseason has been for the Atlanta Falcons. And I think we're probably finally at the climax point of it, at least to this point, in terms of the main parts of the offseason, with what has happened today, which is Matt Ryan being traded from the Atlanta Falcons to the Indianapolis Colts. There's obviously a lot of stuff that's happened before that, and I'm going to go through all of it. And then give you some of the signings and extensions that have happened, talk about the Watson fiasco and what happened, talk about Matt Ryan, and then eventually bring in the what's next. And I'll give you my own thoughts and some opinions. And yeah, before I start this, first, go hug a Falcons fan if you are friends with one because they need it. Second, I've tweeted out a little bit of my thoughts. If you are watching this on YouTube, you'll see right below me, it'll probably be like right there. You will see my Twitter handle. If you do not, or if you listen to this on Spotify or elsewhere, then it's at JC3Talks. So if you want to see a bit more of what I've said, some things I've tweeted out, you can go there, follow me there. But yeah, so I'm going to go through the signings and extensions first. It's more the minor said that I'm going to start off on the Watson stuff. So obviously, the expectation going into this offseason was the Atlanta Falcons were probably not going to do too much, realistically. They just probably weren't going to do much. And they made some smaller signings and some good extensions, in my eyes. The main extensions that they've done to at least this point is they've given a 5-year contract extension to Younghoe Koo, which I loved that move. I love Younghoe. I'm so glad he's going to be here for the foreseeable future. I think the highest his cap hit gets is like a little under $4 million. It's just under $5 million a year, which I think is fair and deserving for how well he has been since he's come to Atlanta. So I'm really happy with that extension. They also extended Jake Matthews. He's one of the only bright spots on our offensive line, and it helped them save a lot of money. So I do think that is the right call. And it opened up some cap space for what they are kind of doing now, some of these smaller signings. So they brought back Olamide Zaccheaus on, I think, what will amount to a little over $2 million in cap hit, I believe. They also re-signed Anthony Rush, who provided really good run support or run fitting on the defensive line, and Colby Gossett, who you may see him, work a little bit on the offensive line at left guard potentially, but he's more just a reserve guy. They also re-signed Isaiah Oliver, who before he got injured last season, moved into the nickel and moved into the slot specifically and played very, very well for Dean Pease and his defense. So I think that is a big plus to have him back, because there's some other signings for the secondary that they made that I actually really, really like. But before they signed Elijah Wilkinson to about a $1.5 million or so contract for 1 year. He was formerly with the Jets. He actually graded out fairly well with the Jets. Played a lot of right tackle. So I think you could see him potentially compete with Caleb McGarry. I think odds are he's going to be more so a backup, maybe compete for the swing tackle spot. But I think that's a very solid signing. They also signed defensive back Teez Tabor, formerly of Florida. He's played some corner. He's played some safety. Nothing more than, I think, just some solid depth at that spot. The big one is signing cornerback Casey Hayward to a 2-year, $11 million deal. Love this. Now, Casey Hayward is a bit older. I think he's about 33 right now, so it'll be 35 by the time his contract is up. But I think he's a great pairing and upgrade over Fabian Moreau. And I think him being paired with AJ Terrell and getting Isaiah Oliver back for the slot, I'm honestly feeling a lot better about the secondary, at least that part of it. Now, safety, you still got a little bit of question mark. Hopefully, Richard Grant can take a step up. But I definitely think the safety or the secondary is looking a lot better now than it did before the offseason started. They also signed running back Damian Williams. Now, many of you will probably remember him from his time at KC, where he actually did very well for Kansas City's Super Bowl run. Last year, he was with the Bears and got injured, didn't really do much. He hasn't really played a full season in a couple years now, played really much at all for a couple seasons now. So I don't have big expectations for him. I think he'll be much more of a change of pace back compared to the heavy hitting backs, the power backs that Arthur Smith tends to use, like the Mike Davis or such. But I do think this gives a bit of flexibility, and I think there's a lot of upside with this. Again, 1-year deal, not expecting much, but I definitely think he could be factored into the offense somewhat. And then today we had another signing, the signing of Marcus Mariota to a 2-year, about $18 million deal. He's kind of being seen as a bridge to whoever we end up taking, whether it's in this draft or the next draft, regarding the quarterback position. And I think he's just going to be a bridge to that. I definitely think his familiarity with Arthur Smith and his offense will be helpful. So I think it's fine. I think I tweeted to someone, I think he was the best bridge option available given the circumstances. So I think that's fine. And I think the contract is fine given he's going to be our starter at least, day one potential. I think he's probably going to be a starter. So now with that out of the way, we now have the whole Watson thing that happened. So I've joked with some people that this offseason is a lot more exciting than I was thinking it was going to be. And it hasn't exactly been exciting for the right reasons. So Watson had a court date and a decision was finalized that they could not find enough evidence to prosecute him. So charges were not put on him. Now he still has issues with the 22 lawsuits against him, but charges were not placed on him, which then opened up the bag for teams to look to trade for Deshaun Watson. And I was not thinking in any realm that we were going to go after Deshaun Watson. But if you go all the way back to before the combine, or around the time of the combine, Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot said that they appreciate Matt Ryan, they love Matt Ryan, but they're open to anything. Like if they find a way to improve the quarterback position or whatever they think makes the team better, they are going to do that. So a lot of people were thinking that quarterback could be taken in the draft this season. Very possible back then, obviously very possible now. We also found out from some sources that they did not want to touch his contract. They would prefer, that was kind of the red flag. Steve Wyche said that is the red flag to what they want to do. They don't want to touch his contract. They don't want to restructure it. They don't want to make it any worse going forward. Move a little forward, and one of the first things they ended up actually doing, allegedly, was restructuring his contract. They didn't get much in terms of the money. No specific terms came out, but did find out that they were saying the Falcons restructured his contract to save up some cap space. But again, the terms never came out. And we'll find out later that was actually fairly important. So moving along a little bit, we end up finding out that apparently the Falcons are doing their due diligence on Deshaun Watson. Again, most Falcons fans were not thinking much of it at this point. Then we end up finding out that the restructure for Matt Ryan's contract never actually happened. And they decided that the roster bonus he was going to get, they were going to move it and push it back to Tuesday, which would be tomorrow, based off when I'm recording this right now, or Tuesday would be the day that you are currently listening to this. They pushed it back to open up their options a bit more. Matt Ryan, of course, agreed to this. And then the Falcons really, truly get into the hunt. We end up finding out the Matt's restructure never actually happened. They didn't officially go through the league office to do it, I guess is kind of how that went. And we end up hearing all these reports that the Falcons are really in. We find out that Deshaun Watson actually contacted the Falcons directly to want to meet up with them. And everyone's starting to think that Deshaun is going to Atlanta. We find out that they, quote, rolled out the red carpet for Deshaun Watson. And we keep going, and all signs are pointing to Watson going to Atlanta, to the point where people are thinking at the end of the day, this was, I think, Friday, Thursday or Friday, that he could be headed to Atlanta. Well, then, during this time, there were 4 teams mainly involved. It was the Saints, the Panthers, the Browns, and the Falcons. The Browns were the first team to get told the Browns are out. Then it was the Panthers, so it seemed to be down to the Saints and the Falcons with all signs pointing to the Falcons. Well, then the Browns came back in and said, we're going to offer you $250 million fully guaranteed, in which out of nowhere, Deshaun flips the script and decides, I want to go to the Browns instead. And it was one of those things that I was, from the very beginning, confused with the desire to go after Deshaun Watson for several reasons. One of them, obviously, is because of the lawsuits against him and everything that happened with the sexual assault allegations. And it was just, do you want to get that baggage with an organization that, yes, Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith are new, but at least with Arthur Blank, they weren't necessarily super big on guys with red flags. And obviously, Deshaun Watson has a ton of red flags on him. We don't even know, like, there's a good chance he's going to be suspended at the beginning of the year. So it was odd that they were going so far in for him. And then, not to mention, the Atlanta Falcons roster is not very good right now. And it's been spoken of on this podcast for a while that they have a lot of limitations, whether it be skill position-wise. I mean, wide receivers right now is awful. The offensive line is not very good. The defensive line does not have much depth. The pass rush is awful. There's questions still with the secondary, even though it's definitely improved at this point. So why would he want to come to Atlanta? And then on top of that, the amount you would have to the amount you'd have to give up in order to get Deshaun Watson. Turns out, as they updated it today, the Browns gave up, I believe it was 3 first-round picks, a third, and a fourth, I think. So there's either 5 or 6 picks in total. They didn't give up any players, but they gave up a ton of picks. And that can set your franchise back terribly, especially a team like Atlanta that needs picks desperately. So it was all those questions. And the thing that became so frustrating and disheartening was the fact that, they went so hard on Deshaun and lost. That's what became so irritating and disappointing, because you could see two sides of it. Some were very much against them going after Deshaun Watson at all, which I completely understand. And so they have their reasons, and it makes complete sense. Then you've got the other side where, you've got, again, they talked about rolling out the red carpet. You had apparently you had Falcons players. You had Atlanta, like famous Atlanta people contacting Deshaun Watson, trying to get him to come here, because the idea of Deshaun Watson coming to Atlanta, coming home, as kind of was the idea behind him coming, was such a way to reinvigorate the franchise and reinvigorate the city of Atlanta for the Falcons, because you've got the Atlanta Braves, who are coming off a World Series championship. You've got the Hawks, who are, maybe this season not doing fantastic, but they do have Trae Young, who is obviously a spark plug. He's big in the city, and they did just go to the Eastern Conference Finals last season. You've got Atlanta United, who's had a lot of success. Then you've got the Falcons, who had been disappointing and constantly mediocre for so many years that a lot of people in Atlanta felt like getting Deshaun Watson was a way to invigorate and get people excited again. I understand that viewpoint too. But at the end of the day, they didn't get him. And there's all sorts of jokes that came out about, this is just like 28-3. And I even tweeted out myself, this feels like 28-3. They weren't even playing a game and they still choked the lead. Like, it's just super disappointing. And it made me question the direction that this franchise is going, and is questioning the leadership, which I'm still questioning. So moving forward, they obviously missed out on Deshaun Watson. And during the discussions to eventually get Deshaun Watson, they were talking to other teams about potentially trading Matt Ryan. And Matt Ryan, kudos to him, was the most professional during this entire situation. And the team that apparently they were very evident discussions with was the Indianapolis Colts, who they ended up trading him to. Now, they only traded him for a 3rd-round pick. And even I'm frustrated. The fact that you just gave up the best player in your franchise's history for a 3rd. But looking at it realistically, the Falcons had absolutely no leverage. Apparently, there was a no trade clause in I believe there was a no trade clause in Matt Ryan's contract, which obviously made he could dictate where he wanted to go. And after the Deshaun Watson situation, everyone figured there's no way Matt Ryan plays it down because he made it so apparent that the Falcons don't want Matt Ryan. So there was no real, chance for true negotiations. I was hoping they could at least get a 2nd, and they just got a 3rd. They didn't even get the best that the Colts had. So props to the Colts. They made this work out great ever since they traded Carson Wentz. I think it worked out great for their end, and I'm going to root for Matt Ryan, and I'm going to root for the Colts. I mean, I think that's a big improvement, honestly, for Matt Ryan and the Indianapolis Colts, and I think they're probably leaders in that division. I truly do. But that'll be something for another time that we can talk about. With this, again, the Falcons get a 3rd-round pick, and they end up taking on a $40.5 million dead cap hit, which is the largest in NFL history. They end up saving, I think, like $8 or $9 million with this. So I guess you could potentially see them try to make a move. There's a lot of question marks still with this roster. They got to figure out. They've got to figure out receiver. Right now, I think their starters are probably Olamide Zaccheaus and Frank Darby, which is not good. So they obviously, like I mentioned before, they brought in Marcus Mariota. It seems like he's going to be that bridge guy. He's probably going to be the starter day one. If you want to put a positive spin on it, he's worked with Arthur Smith. Apparently, Arthur Smith really likes him, so maybe there's something there. But I obviously not getting my hopes up. If it's not clear, I'm disappointed, and the Falcons have made me really question their direction. My only hope, and this is something that I and Josh have been clamoring for a long time, is the Falcons need to go ahead and rebuild because we're a lot closer to being an awful team than a good team. And I'm hoping with the trading of Matt Ryan, they will continue to do that because I still think Grady Jarrett's the next guy that's got to go. And I think Grady Jarrett deserves a lot better. And I have no reason to believe that he's going to want to negotiate a contract extension to stay in Atlanta at this point, given the direction of our franchise and all the freaking crap this offseason has been. So I hope they end up trading him, free up some more cap space, and maybe get some more picks out of that. But right now I think they have 5 picks in the top 100 of the NFL draft. Specifically, I think they got 5 in the top 83. So they've got a good foundation to be able to get some young talent into the roster. So that's a kind of a large, cavalcade of everything that's happened with Atlanta to this point. So big thing is going forward, what should I expect? Well, there's already been a lot of the tags for, I think, sacrifice for Bryce. The idea of going for Bryce Young. And some people have asked, okay, are the Falcons going to get a quarterback this year or next year? And to those that have asked me, my answer is it could be either one. I'm still not super sold on them taking a quarterback at number 8, but at this point, especially considering you don't have a true, you don't have your franchise quarterback still there. Maybe you do decide to just, if Malik Willis is the guy to you, then yeah, take him at 8, I guess. I could also see them going BPA if a guy like Kayvon Thibodeau maybe falls to 8, you take him, and then with all this, you got 2 seconds and a 2/3, maybe you try to trade back up into the first round and get a quarterback if he falls, like a Desmond Ridder, Sam Howell, or something. We'll see. I'm not entirely sure the route they will go, but I think if I had to think of the 3 guys that I think have a good shot at being in Atlanta next season, it'd be Malik Willis, Desmond Ridder, and Kenny Pickett. I think any of those 3 guys are very much in play. It just depends on where. Outside of that receiver, they still got to figure that out. And a lot of the receivers are getting picked up in free agency. There's not many good ones left. So I don't know what the plan is there, but they need something because their receiving group is a gaping hole. Running back, they brought in Damian Williams. I still think they probably need to go running back in the draft. And I also question, are they going to keep Mike Davis? Because he's got a bit of a cap hit. So we'll see. I don't know exactly what the plan is there. I still feel like they need to get a left guard to at least provide competition for Jalen Mayfield. If they just decide to go into next season with him as a starter, I'm going to be a little disappointed. I feel like they brought in – they also brought in Lorenzo Carter. I forgot to add that to my list. They brought in Lorenzo Carter from the Giants, who actually played pretty well down the stretch last season. I think he ended up with 5 or 6 sacks or so, and he got like 5 in his last 4 games. So hopefully that's something that he can transition to when he gets into Atlanta. I definitely think they could try to get maybe one more edge rusher, if at all possible. And then – then I don't know if cornerback's a high pick, but I think they could go there somewhere in the draft. Safety. Really, this roster still needs talent. And I don't think next year we're going to be a good team. I really think it's going to be bad. I think it's going to be worse than this what year was because of all the issues that I think this team's going to have. No clear quarterback, obviously. And, I forgot to mention, Cordell Patterson's also back on a 2-year, $10 million deal. I can't believe I forgot that one. I'm very happy that Cordell Patterson is back. He even made a joke on Twitter about playing quarterback now. So that's going to be nice to see as well. But I don't know. Like I said, I've got a lot of questions. I still question the direction that the Atlanta Falcons are attempting to go into. If they're going rebuild, I think just rebuild completely. And I think if you try to do this little, we're going to rebuild but compete at the same time, like, of course, I always want you to compete, but don't, like, I don't know, don't try to fake it. Like, look, this is not a good team. And I'm not saying you need to necessarily, like, absolutely tank. I'm not big with tanking. But, like, play your young guys and go for the upside. Don't try to bring in a bunch of veterans that are just going to kind of barely get you that way. Like, this is a move that I think this takes us out of mediocrity. Why did I keep saying that wrong? Mediocre territory, but I think this just makes us a really bad team. I think we absolutely could compete for the number 1 or number 2 pick next year. So we could potentially get a Bryce Young or a CJ Stroud or something. But at this point, I'm embracing the rebuild. I just think trade like guys like Grady Jarrett, Deion Jones, trade them for picks, try to improve that cap, because I'll say this, in 2023, next year, the Falcons are going to have a lot of cap space. They're projected to have, I think, about $110 million in cap space. So that'll give Terry Fontenot a big opportunity to improve the roster through free agency, through trades, and the such. I think next year's a year you can really try to, bang for your buck and see what you can do. So I think a lot is riding on these next 2 offseasons for Terry Fontenot. Again, I've mentioned my frustrations. I'm not going to necessarily say that they just need to cut bait with him and Arthur Smith, but he needs to nail this draft, especially considering all the draft capital he's got now. They have got to nail it. They've got to get some good talent, some talent that's going to immediately contribute, and not just like this past season where, Jalen Mayfield was a starter, but he did not play well. Richard Grant, I still got a high upside for, but he didn't play much. Kyle Pitts was really the only big-time contributor. They need better this year in this draft, and we'll see how it goes. But that's kind of my overarching thoughts on what they've done in free agency, what they've done with the whole Deshaun Watson fiasco and everything that regarded that, and obviously now with the departure of Matt Ryan. The last thing I'll say, and it's in regards to Matt Ryan, is I've always been a Matt Ryan supporter. Matt Ryan has been the quarterback for as long as I've been a Falcons fan. And I do think he'll go down as one of the most underappreciated fans or unappreciated Falcons in our franchise's history. But he is undoubtedly the best Atlanta Falcon of all time. And I think a lot of Falcons fans, it's going to be one of those things like you're only going to appreciate it when it's gone. So I wish him the best in Indianapolis. I really hope that he succeeds there. I really hope the Indianapolis Colts succeed with him at the helm. And it's going to be tough not seeing number 2 on the field. Obviously, he's not exactly at his best seasons, but I think this is the best for him. And this gives him an opportunity to go win a ring, because right now the Atlanta Falcons in our current timeline is not going to fit with him. You know, he's on the wrong side of 30 at this point. He's going to be turning 37. And I think he's got a much better chance to succeed in Indianapolis than he does in Atlanta. So I wish him the best. And I guess that's it. Like I said, those are all my thoughts. Expect some more of those team reviews coming very, very soon. But given everything that had been transpiring, I was kind of waiting for this to come to a halt. And I'll be honest, after the Deshaun Watson thing, I kind of was like, I don't have the spirit to do it right now. But I am back. Expect more content very, very soon. Again, if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever, remember that JJ Talks is on YouTube now. So some of you are watching this right now. If you're not, please go subscribe to the YouTube channel and leave a like. It will help kind of promote that. But with all that being said, thank you all for tuning in to another episode of JJ Talks, and I will see y'all next time.